Welcome everybody. Welcome to our day 6 of getting through the holidays for energetically sensitives and empaths. Here from transCODES, my name is Jona, bryndis, energy healer, energy coach. And what I'm trying to do is give you guys a little bit of heads up, the energies of the day, how they shifted, how they're coming in the last 24 hours. Working here with energetically sensitives all day long. There's many observations that I've made in the last hours. And so I'm trying to help you or guide you through the jungle of the holiday energies and the year-end energies as well. Before we get started here on the topics, which today will be very interesting for most of you, I want to see who of you is here. Can you hear me? Is there good audio? And please let me know where you're watching from. What country are you watching from? All right. Nothing coming yet. It's a delay. We have to wait for people to come on. If you don't have the ability, or if you don't know how to leave a comment, how to join the live chat, you probably don't have a YouTube account or you are not logged in. So for you to log on and to participate here in the chat, you need to have a YouTube account. Hey Denmark, hey California, so good to see you guys. Yes, and click on the like button. That helps to distribute the video. Also, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, then you're probably not getting the notifications. So those of you who subscribe to this channel, they're getting an email, telling you that the show is coming on. Yes, hey, Australia. We're going to need you guys in Canada. We're going to have a special panel guest here today, Rebecca Lee from Australia, and she's going to share something very, very interesting for you guys. The overall subject that we're going to be talking about today is karmic relationships, but looking at the daily energies or the energies of today. I guess we're talking about relationships altogether and relationship patterns. So I'm very excited to greet Rebecca here in like 15-20 minutes. Until then, first I'm going to illuminate some of these energies that I mentioned, and then reflect on the crypto market of today, just to bring in sort of the worldly part. And I've chosen cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, the Bitcoin world, as a reflector for some of the societal transformation and the inner transformation that we all going through. This shift, as I called it yesterday, as an indicator for certain things. Why have I chosen the cryptocurrency world? For that, I guess part of that is my personal aptitude in to the software industry, and also just coding and sort of the technological coolness of it. All right, I've always been a pioneer of new technologies, and so just like with energy work, which is almost like an old hat for me, because it's starting to get into the early adapter stage, and so a lot of times then things become mainstream after that, and that's when I lose interest a bit. But yes, London, good to see you. So we're gonna use the crypto market just as an overall reflection here, because different from, like, say, for instance, the stock market, and I'm going to talk about this. The cryptocurrency market is actually almost like a grassroots movement. Up until now, we're in this early stage of like maybe 1.5% of the population knowing what Bitcoin is and knowing what cryptocurrencies are, and perhaps even having made the move, to invest or to educate themselves. This is a very, very early stage. We haven't even reached this early adapter stage that doesn't even take effect until there's at least 3% of the population. But the interesting part is that it is a world movement, okay? And this is why I like using it as an example. All right, let's move into the energies of today. Okay, all I can say is that, not all I can say more, obviously. But today is a first chakra day. Today is the day of re-evaluation. The high is gone, the hype is gone, and everything is done. At least, sort of the pressure part is gone. And so we may actually feel a bit low today energetically. Yesterday was just tired and exhausted, but in a good way. Today is a bit more critical. Yes, Gemma, fear is creeping back in. Judgment, we're reevaluating everything that happened. We're putting things on a gold scale, so to speak. We're rehashing things. And this literally puts our energy back into old patterns. So we're literally now shifting our energy from, the fire putter outer into the back into the chronic stuff, back into the things that have been lingering, that we have been suppressing. And when was that? Day 4, I think, we talked with Shoshana about unmet needs and also unmet expectations. And those are coming in today. And the ramifications of that, the consequences of that, this bitter or stale taste after, the fire is put out, after the stress is relieved. Now it's like, okay, did this actually go well? And I'm actually seeing a lot of, I had energy coachings all day today. I'm seeing a lot of push-pull mechanisms between people right now. That they're starting to play games again. I don't know if you can relate to this, but when there's a larger issue at hand, like a common enemy, for instance, then people kind of try, they kind of show that they're best, and they try to conform to a degree, to just get through it, all right, to just get over with it, okay? But then, when all that is done, we get haunted by, the underlying stuff, the stuff that was swept under the rug. And this analogy, or this metaphor of things being swept under the rug, and the incongruence that can come with that. Incongruence, I've talked a lot about this in the past and written lots of articles about this, because it's such a fundamental thing to understand for any energetically sensitive. Every time you do something, or even say something, or engage in something that doesn't fully represent how you truly feel, or even violates, your core values, and believe it or not, this happens more often than you think it does, for various reasons that we're going to be illuminating here today. But you are literally impacting your ability not only to ward off negative energies that are coming in from the outside, but also, restricting your own energy body, to do the things that it's good at, and that are needed, for instance, healing and clearing. And so today is a bit of a critical day, guys. Most of you are maybe already over with this day, and those of you in Australia and Japan, Japan and New Zealand, you're starting your day. And so, for you, this is something, perhaps maybe it came in through your dreams during the night, or you can feel this kind of um, murky feeling inside of you. So it's not a really positive feeling, and this is not the time where you can, like cave in. This is a time where you have to pay attention, because now is when all your old patterns come back in. All right, when you go back to just coping with things, and coping, as we've already talked about at length, is what brings up all these things that you don't really want to be anymore, or that pull you into a place where you can't fully trust yourself, or where you can't fully love yourself. It pulls you into a place of inner fragmentation. And inner fragmentation is something that splits you, energy. It wastes energy onto keeping up a facade, perhaps, or trying to show up in a way that is not fully who you truly are. And now, of course, multiply this. This is exponential in times where we get together with others, where we get together with family or friends. Everybody is kind of in that state. And now we are like more or less, bombarding each other with all these things. And some of which that are coming in today is self-doubt, self-judgment, and of course also the criticism that comes in towards others. So what happens when we go into this fragmented place is that we can't really connect with our heart anymore, that we can't really be centered and consolidated anymore. And that's the moment when we get susceptible. That's the moment when we get attacked. That's the moment when we absorb other people's energies. Yes, reevaluating, almost like a deja vu of the last year, but different perspective. If you are if you're proactive and you really sort of going into deeper self-reflection and follow some of the suggestions that I make throughout the year, as far as like active self-healing is concerned, this reevaluation energy of today is actually not a bad energy. It will help you to make minor corrections and to reframe big time. But if you have not, or if you're not in the practice of doing that, then you are now pretty much pre-programmed to go back into your patterns, into this this source programming that you have, that was formed in those very early stages of your development. And unfortunately, for energetically sensitives and empaths, this often ends up us feeling victimized. Not that we are victims all the time, but we do feel victimized. It leads to codependency. It leads to incongruences that allow others to seriously cross or violate our boundaries. So my recommendation here for these next 24 hours is to make a stance, to really, even if you have to force yourself to pay attention when this happens. Do not let other people violate your boundaries. Do not allow yourself to go into this place of self-berating, of self-beat up, or give others the power, to criticize you and to make you feel unworthy or undeserving. This is what I meant with this is not the time to retreat or to go into reclusion or isolation. This is the time where you want to connect with yourself regardless. Connect with yourself because you're starting to feel a little bit of a I don't want to say attack, but you're starting to feel like you're losing your ground. Okay, so making a stance is a very important energy work technique, and that has a lot to do with our ability to be grounded. So my energy tip for today is grounding first chakra exercises. Okay, and please email me if you want to get the working with our chakras, so like a list of exercises for each main physical chakra as in the practical, like really practical exercises. So for a typical practical first chakra exercise is jump rope, for instance, or chopping wood, or doing anything with impact. In fact, those of you in the northern hemisphere where it's colder right now, use the time, go outside, do a long hike, or, and this is something that goes along with the over energies of these weeks here, leading into the new year, leading into 2018, is water. Connect with water. Maybe take a bath or a shower. That would be the first thing that you can resort to, other than breathing and drinking water and all that. Take a bath, or go into a steam room, or into a public pool if you don't have one on your own. So there are things that can help. And right now, the water element can be very conducive for you to release some of the absorbed stuff, and also to just help you to detox. All right, so my overall energy tip is detox for today, energetic detox, and that has to do with being able to stand your ground, being able to connect within, and being able to clear all these sort of distortive energies out of your system. All right. The crypto market is also in that state of detoxing and recovery. So we're seeing, a sort of a relaxation here. The tension of the correction of the last days is gone. We've crossed the $600 billion barrier, which is a bit of a psychological barrier, because that was where we were last week, and then the correction happened, which, as many of you know, I've shared this before, was triggered by some of the wallets and the exchanges, and also most likely the CME, the futures trade that started on the 18th. So there is this lack of trust that came in, and because the majority of the market is still ruled by unprofessional traders, say, by people like you and I, by people who don't do this for a living, and who are coming in like this grassroots movement, who see this as an opportunity, and who are aligning themselves to the abundance that is there. The problem with that is that the market, therefore, is also very irrational, very emotional. Okay, and as you know, last week Bitcoin, and not just Bitcoin, but I'm just using Bitcoin here sort of as the representative of this whole market. I went into new heights. Everything was open. We shoot for the moon. And everybody was hyped up mostly by greed. Okay, we must not forget that this is a technology, that these are real people, real companies, real technologies. Granted, not all of them are integrous. Not all of them actually have real products. But the whole crypto movement, and this idea of decentralization and cutting out the middleman is based on a certain spirit. And there's some wonderful startups that have that have come out on the stage this week, that they work 24/7, and they really trying to come up with products that help us users to become more familiar, to become more trusting, and also safer in this market, and also, of course, speed. And there is an aspect here with the technology that has to do with how the blockchain has to do with the architecture of the blockchain. And when you hear people talking about Bitcoin is too slow, blah blah blah, this is correct, and nobody really knows how this is going to play out, because at this volume, that is only the beginning. Okay, remember, this is $600 billion is only like the 1.5%. The professional traders, the smart money, hasn't even entered yet, and yet we're expecting that this is happening right now. So the exchanges, the wallets, who more or less all fell apart last week, have to improve. And this is also why you are seeing a lot of gains in these areas of exchanges, in these areas of tokens that represent wallets and exchanges. Also, of course, the gains in with those tokens that represent a faster architecture. Some of them are based on the blockchain, and some of them use their own protocol. It doesn't really matter. If all this is like a foreign language to you, then just ignore this. Just know that, the greed and the emotionality is what pulls people into their coping mechanisms, what pulls them into their old patterns. And that is, fear for the most part. So when things, go into correction, they immediately pull out, they immediately lose trust, and that makes them lose a lot of money. Those of us, who understand, some of the deeper aspects of that technology, and also the companies and the real products and the real use that is behind those applications or companies, the real value that is being produced, we don't need to worry. We don't need to pull out when a correction happens, and there'll be more corrections. So stay calm, and the same really applies for your relationships. Just because things got a little iffy over the holidays, things got a little intense maybe, or, you had some ups and downs, it doesn't mean that you have to go into this black and white immediately. I've predicted this for this week, and you got to be careful here, to fall for your own irrationality that is now being triggered through some of your core patterns, be it fear, be it anger, be it injustice, be it rejection or guilt. And one thing I keep forgetting to mention, okay, we do this here for you guys to ask questions and to comment. So please, please, please ask questions. All right, I want to get Rebecca on. I'm going to have to call her in Australia, which I'm going to do right now. And as I'm trying to get her on, I want you to push the like button, to send a comment, and to let us know that you're there. Rebecca.
Hi.
Rebecca Lee from Australia. Life coach, entrepreneur, if I may say so. At least in my eyes, you are. And energy worker for many years. Rebecca, you have your own programs, you have your own courses and your own platforms. And I don't know if could you hear a little bit about, sort of what I brought in here as current energies before you came on?
Yes, I was listening, and it was absolutely perfect to what I've been feeling for today. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and so I mean, we didn't plan this out, weeks ahead. This was spontaneous, and talking about we're just responding to energies, and talking about relationships, karmic relationships, relationship patterns, and all this seems extremely timely today. All right, so I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm struggling with my software right now. I'm trying to get your picture on the screen, and I don't know why this is not working. Okay, so let me just do my thing here and tell us a little bit about what you do, Rebecca, and also how people can reach you, and sort of what your view is on, like the main problem that people are going through in these times of transformation.
Okay, then. Well, thank you first for inviting me onto your show. I feel really grateful that you would have me on, so thank you so much. So my name is Rebecca Lee. I have been running a program called Unlock Your Love Blocks for the last couple of years. I work with people on an energetic and soul level. I'm an intuitive coach, a family constellation practitioner, and an energy healer. And I started out really wanting to work with people with self-love. And it wasn't my intention to really work with relationships, but, you know, that's just kind of how it's unfolded on my path. And over the years, I've seen people, I guess, I don't want to say fall into, but kind of find themselves in relationships or relationship patterns that I could see was very familiar to them on a soul level. That's patterns and types of relationships that they seem to go through various lifetimes.
Interesting.
And I started, yeah.
So you can actually see those patterns in people's energy fields, you know, like things maybe related to past lives. Is that how we need to understand this?
Yes. So I could see, usually I see a lot of things with vision. So I would see visions of the person in past lives where the vision is, you know, really them playing out the same kind of issues in other lifetimes as what they're presenting with in this lifetime. That's how I started really seeing these patterns, and then I became, and then I started really seeing into chakras and people's energy. So I really started to learn how to interpret seeing different energies within people's bodies and chakras, and started really kind of trying to understand what different blocks in different chakras meant and what people were working through. So it's been a bit of a journey interpreting, and of course looking at my own patterns and my own relationships.
Right.
So
I mean, this is
doing our own work as well.
This is interesting. I think people. Oh, yay! I got you on the screen. Okay, you should be seeing her in 1 second. I'm sure this is interesting for people, you know, because of course, you know, we seek out therapy, or we seek out help, energy work, or you know, life coaching to resolve issues, you know, such as like maybe success in our career, or you know, like being healthier or happier or something. And I agree with you. A lot of times, if I heard this right, you know, a lot of times, you know, it really isn't the issue with health or with money or with some of the things that people sort of name as what they would like to work on. It is often reflected in their relationships, what is actually going like wrong, you know, not to judge, but, you know, what sort of where the block is within themselves. I mean, can you make an example, maybe, Rebecca? I think that's really interesting for people to hear, that you can also see sort of past life relationships. How does this come to you when you work with someone and they say, well, you know, I just feel unhappy or fulfilled, or I have self-doubt, you know, and then you begin to see things sort of in their energy field that relate to their relationship. Well, what does that, what can this look like for a person?
Well, I mean, it's quite broad, but it could be, say, I get a lot of people, a lot of women who might attract a male who seems to always be committed somewhere else, whether they're married or, in some kind of relationship. And, I can see various things play out, for them in past lives where, they have, it's not always that they've been the one that has been the victim, so to speak. Often they've been the perpetrator, and they've been the ones that have had commitment issues and things like that. And so in this lifetime, I guess what I need to say about karma and our interpretation of karma, so many people feel that when we talk about something karmic, that it's like, we know it's the law of cause and effect, but so many people still feel that it's an external force, that it's something that just so happens to happen to them, and there's that real kind of victim, feeling around it. But, karmic is, I believe we can move beyond karmic relationships, because the karmic, our souls are always trying to balance out, and it's not just within this lifetime, it's across lifetimes. So someone who perhaps has been a cheater in a past life can come into this lifetime and, to try and balance out their, they'll seem to attract people that can't commit in relationships. That's just one example. There's so many different things that can happen around money.
That's a good example, though. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I was just listening to you before talking about the cryptocurrencies, and you mentioned today being the first chakra, and I thought, well, this is really perfect, because today I'm really sensing in relationships, like today's where the money, like where the pockets are really hurting, where, a lot of people go and spend more than what they're able to over Christmas, on presents and, traveling or, food. And everything just adds up, and everybody, well, not everybody, I should say everybody, but a lot of people want to experience everything at Christmas time, which often means pushing beyond, their financial means. And it's kind of like a bit of a sugar rush, like this is like the coming down day today.
That's exactly how I perceive this too, talking to people all day. It's like the sugar high is gone, and now you're dealing with the hangover, but the not so much, like more the financial hangover, the physical hangover, the whole sort of reevaluation. That's why I call it a reevaluation and recovery. It's like, ooh, okay, this is a bit of a downer now. Let's look back at reality, right?
That's exactly right. And so this is really playing out in a lot of people's relationships. So, I'm actually in the bush at the moment at this big festival here in Australia. And, I observe, it's who I am, it's what I do. And I've just been observing a lot of couples this morning. And, we're supposed to be at this big love and light, amazing festival.
Right.
But, there's a lot of people that have energy, but when you can perceive energy and you can feel what's underneath the masks, I can feel a lot of people who are feeling fight, who are feeling tension between each other, the male, the masculine, the feminine, the male, the female, there seems to be a pattern. I don't know if this is all around the world, but it's what I see here in Australian couples where, the women love to spend, the men don't want to spend, and there's this push-pull between them, and there's this resentment between them, and there's got to be a common ground in couples, like between, like I always say that spenders attract savers and vice versa, and we need a spender and we need a saver in our relationships. The dance is then just trying to balance it out, and I think this is the theme. This is what's setting us up for next year, because next year is the vibration 211 year And, it's going to be a lot around our partnerships, and there's going to be a lot of focus on our partnerships and our relationships, and how we're going to do this dance now. It has to be done differently. There's a lot of men that are feeling the pinch, that are feeling like slaves almost, and there's a lot of men, I've already started seeing it around December, who are literally having breakdowns because they literally can't do it anymore. And so this is why it's interesting that you talk about the cryptocurrencies and things like this, because I think that, people have to be more open-minded, not just about how to do life and pay for life, but also get them out of this kind of flogging themselves for money, because it's just affecting too many relationships now, and people have been doing it for so long, and I just feel that a lot of relationships are not going to be able to manage that for much longer. So I'm probably darting all over the place here.
No, it's awesome, because you're basically filling in, all these things that we talked about earlier. It's the incongruence, and with it, there's this phoniness, pretending on the outside, but sort of being fragmented on the inside, which leads to this dissatisfaction and unhappiness, and maybe also resentment, and in relationships, of course, that plays out immediately, and then the money aspect. I love that you're bringing that in, because that's the first chakra issue, and that is something that needs to be approached on a practical level. All right, it doesn't matter if we're spiritual or not. We're still going to have to pay our bills. All right, and I'm not sure if I 100% agree with your view on the spending habits of masculine and feminine, because I see men spending huge amounts of money on other things that they think are worthwhile spending money on, whereas in a typical relationship, women tend to spend more money on the little things, like here and there, and for gifts. And of course, gift giving is traditionally somewhat of feminine energy. It has to do with, sort of providing, and not that there's not that men don't want to provide. We're just talking stereotypical here, but I think this is the same all over the world, Rebecca. I just believe that because of what you said, namely that it's starting to get rougher, it's starting to get tighter, and not so much the amount of money, but the way we used to make money, was for most people a huge incongruence to begin with. They were doing a job, just above broke, and just to get through, sort of the fire put her outer type of thing, and never really having anything left over to enjoy life, or never really feeling fulfilled in the job that they were doing. And so the masculine energy, and I'm saying this in that way because it's sometimes actually women that do represent the masculine energy in their relationships, even with men.
Yeah.
But the masculine energy is going into some massive resentment about that right now, because the overall energy is truth. And so as truth is trying to come in, and also joy, and fulfillment, I think a lot of men are now starting to realize that what they're doing is really not fulfilling for them. And of course, this is the same for women as well, but we were talking stereotypical stuff, right? I mean, like sort of where there's a stereotypical role behavior. But it's always been the women, that were looked at when it came to like fulfillment and all that, because women are a bit more open about this to seek like a coach or a therapist or counselor, But I think we're going to see a lot of men seeking this higher vibrational path in the future. I've just put out an article 2 days ago about healing the violated masculine spirit. This is coming in big time, right now, is to really see that, sure, we're talking about the divine feminine and all that, and the goddess energies and all that. And there's, of course, truth to that, because the feminine has been sort of outcasted a little bit over the last couple of thousand years, right? But and it's coming back in now. That's bringing in, sort of this inner unification and the emancipation in, which is a big foundation for truth. But the same has to happen for the masculine too, because in order to reconcile with one, we also need to reconcile with the other. So it comes down to the like, okay, what are your needs? What are my needs? It comes down to like expressing needs, and not going into this resentful or sometimes even, loaded with contempt place where we accuse the other, of not, providing not providing for my needs on all levels. And the whole thing happens usually without even expressing what the needs are. So for me, I don't know about you, Rebecca, but for me, the big thing that's coming in right now with this liberation and the need for making a stance and for setting clear boundaries is also the need to express our true needs. And for that, in order to like even be in that place that we can say renegotiate our relationship, right? Or we can say, oh, okay, then let's try something new, or let's start a new business together, or, you do a different job, or we move somewhere to start new, or, this is all planning, this is all working things out, but in order to get there, people need to know what it is that they truly want. And this is where I see one of the big sort of fragments right now, and especially today, because Christmas and all this, the functions, the family functions, the relationship stuff, there's so much expectation, so much so much going on an energetic level, like you say, right? I mean, the energetic dynamics between people, I mean, like what we say and what actually happens is just the tip of the iceberg of what is really going on between people. And this, we don't even know that because we have not learned yet to discern, what is mine, what is not, what do I truly need? Do I actually express how I truly feel? That to me is one of the big themes for 2018. Like you said, with this practical skill to come together and renegotiate and plan. And perhaps even taking on challenges, but willingly and voluntarily, and say, yes, we do want to change something here. I want to be with different people. I want to, have a different job, whatever it is that we think that can help us to get closer, to move more towards fulfillment.
And I agree. And I think that's what the 11 vibration will help with, and I shouldn't say just the masculine before. I think, we know, that we have masculine and feminine energies in us, and some women are more in their masculine and some men are more in their feminine. But, generally, I'll have to read that article that you wrote about the masculine spirit, but that's definitely a big theme that I've picked up, that really needs to be addressed next year. Primarily, I would have women come to me who have been really stepping into their truth and taking steps to change their careers, step more into what they truly want to do. I feel in relationships, what needs to happen now is either, the male or the person who's more in their masculine energy, it's going to be their time to speak their truth to themselves, know their own truth about what's working in their life and what's not, and step more into, like they said, the things, like you said before, things that make them happy, that make them feel fulfilled, rather than that pushing for money all the time. So I think, speaking up and speaking the truth is going to be a big theme for next year in relationships.
Yes, and if you take this... So if we take this apart, I'm just picking up on what you just said, just pushing, muscling through things, just wanting to get by. you know, is also something that relates to what you said earlier, Rebecca, about commitment. I think this is the problem with commitment in relationships. You know, there's of course karmic aspects, and as we all know, they can affect a lot of the ways we process things and we perceive things. But there's also, you know, this to even feel the space to be true to ourselves. And I think this is something that we worked on here in the Grace Gaia Sophia Marathon this last week, is if we cannot commit to ourselves, to our true needs, to what makes us feel safe, what makes us feel loved within, and then it's really difficult to commit to somebody else, because we can't even commit to ourselves, our needs, our love.
Yeah.
And this goes totally in line with what you said earlier, you know. It's like, okay, in plain English, I'd say times of half-ass are over. You know, we got to stand up for what we want. And, you know, what we want doesn't necessarily, you know, have to be measurable in terms of like bank account or something like that, or certain accomplishments that would probably pull us into our third chakra a little too much. But, you know, what we truly want, what you just said, what makes us fulfilled, what makes us feel like we are following our inner, well, destiny, if you will, you know. So, Rebecca, I can't wait to talk about what I promised people to talk about. You have a cool project going on, and I do need you to talk about High Vibration City, okay? This is really important.
Okay.
Because we already know that there's a lot of talented and wonderful practitioners out there, like yourself, like myself, you know, who combine energy work with, you know, the different aspects of, like, say, body work or emotional healing or mental healing or, you know, karmic healing, energetic clearing, and so forth, recovery, addiction. So we've already met quite a few different people, but you have something that gives me a lot of hope. So please.
Oh, thank you. Okay, well, where do I start? So, sorry, I just think I talked over you then. It's a bit cutting outy. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're all right. We have a little bit of a delay. Yeah, but it's okay.
Okay. So High Vibration City was a idea, a vision that come to me a number of years ago, and it's taken me some time to really understand what it's about. So High Vibration City has a number of different purposes, but primarily it is a place online where, you know, energy sensitive, empaths, light workers, you know, people who are awakening can, you know, meet and connect online, you know, in a place where, you know, kind of outside of the energies of Facebook and things like that. You know, I speak to a lot of people who love being on social media, but really struggle, you know, with the energies of that are in Facebook. So that's one of the first purposes. You know, it'll be a place where, you know, people can do a lot like Facebook, but there's you know, it will be more for people who are on their path of, you know, people who are able to look within themselves and, you know, I guess a supportive place where people can, you know, continue their personal and spiritual development, and that is, you know, supportive and encouraging and, you know, with other people who are on the same path. So that was one of the first aspects that I felt, you know, needed to be there. You know, people can communicate and talk to the same sort of people. I will also have my various programs in there But what we're working towards is that it will be a place where I would like to be able to help singles who are looking to move beyond the soulmate karmic type relationship and find a more divine love. So I would like to start helping people find love through energy matchmaking.
Yes, yes.
I don't know how much you want me to go into.
What do you guys think about this? Give us some feedback here. This is awesome. You know, Rebecca, I can't even tell you how many times I'm being asked. How many people are complaining that they have a hard time meeting people. They don't want to go to these places, whatever, be in a bar or even Facebook, you know, because this is not conducive for them energetically. They are working, you know, on their own growth and on their own, you know, sort of decoding, you know, who they are and choosing this path of truth. And they just can't seem to find people who resonate with this. Now, there's a lot of people who would like to do this too, but then, you know, there's also this ratio that I talked about a lot in the past. Yeah, I talked about accepting that, you know, 9 out of 10 people will simply not resonate, you know, with how you see the world. And for a loving and lasting relationship, you know, that's a big foundation, you know, to be with someone who can relate to some of the things that we are going through, right? I mean, not as in like disease or anything, but, you know, just how we see the world and how we embrace sort of this new paradigm of seeing ourselves as incarnated spiritual beings, you know, as souls with a body and not as bodies with a soul, you know, and that requires, I mean, I don't think that it requires a certain religion or school belief system, but it requires a little bit of training, you know, to go within and to go into this deeper reflection and then to be able to transport this into relationship. This, I mean, if you asking me, you know, on my personal journey, the translation into relationships was the hardest part for me. That took almost the longest. Yeah. But it was also the part, you know, like how we talked about earlier, that kept on repeating and repeating and repeating. So there was this like really like screaming out loud, look at me pattern, you know, there's the same thing happening over and over again. And I can't even, I mean, it was impossible for me at a certain point to say, well, this was his fault or this was his fault, because, you know, those were completely different men, completely different relationships that had nothing to do with another. And yet I end up in the same place emotionally and mentally and of course with my judgments and all that, that can't be, you know, I mean, you know, you can't exchange the person and then go into the same pattern unless it is your own. And so the translation into relationships, to me, I totally agree with you, has a lot to do with our inner relationship and our outer relationships, you know, need that foundation. So that's why it's so hard sometimes to find people, you know, because you have to be willing to work on your inner relationship before you can actually manifest such kind of relationship that is based on truth and openness and trust. You know, like with this new paradigm of energetically being supportive and synergetic, and that is very difficult to find people. So how is the timeline? When can we expect and I don't want to put any pressure on you, but I know that there are people who are waiting for something like this, a place where they can not only join a community, where they can not only, you know, do active self-healing and work on some of the specific aspects, but where they can also potentially meet other singles.
Okay, so we're launching the next Unlock Your Love Blocks program in High Vibration City at the end of January in 2018.
Okay.
The matchmaking part, that probably won't be up until more mid-year in 2018. So that's still a bit of a work on progress. But, you know, my whole kind of thinking around, you know, moving beyond, you know, I have this thing where I'm actually doing some webinars, I should say that. I'm doing some webinars in January talking about moving beyond your love karma, moving beyond the karmic relationships. Cool. And when I say that, it is, you know, it's moving out of those patterns. And you talk about our, you know, our inner relationship with ourselves, you know, when we have that, when we have that connection and we have that peace inside us, you know, with that relationship with ourselves, it can manifest in the relationships around us. And I've always actually seen, like, and this is what I see constantly in relationships, is that our purpose, our life work, how we serve in the world, whether we serve you know, our family or other humans or animals or nature or science or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like, it's that, you know, the more that we kind of do that inner work, the more that we shift onto our path of purpose. And then the more that we shift onto that path of purpose, the more that we end up kind of moving ourselves beyond, you know, beyond attracting those typical soulmates that we seem to attract over and over again. So as we do that inner work, you know, we more and more shift ourselves, we shift our careers, we shift onto, you know, the path of our heart's desires. And, you know, as we move into our purpose more and more, and maybe, if, you know, you reflect back in your life and you see how things change in your purpose work, and as you started getting more on the path, your relationship starts to shift.
Everything.
If you're single, you start to attract, you know, different, you know, it might take a couple of dates, or it might take one or two relationships over, you know, a couple of years, but the energy will start to slowly shift and slowly shift the more you start to grow and you release the old karmic patterns or those old blocks, you know, and it's a process and it happens for people. And that was what my thinking was, you know, when I was looking at other dating sites, and I talked to a lot of single people about their experiences in that site and what's happening. And I'm just, you know, people that are going in there and they're looking for love, you know, but they're not doing any of the energy or soul work that they need to be doing to shift themselves, you know, to feel more fulfilled in their careers and to feel more purpose-filled and spirit-filled, you know. I believe that the vision that I was shown is, you know, I believe that we have, there's three parts of our being. You know, we have our ego conscious part, we have our soul, that part of us that travels through time and space and experiences, and then we have that spirit part of us that you know, the highest vibrating, like the one that stays closest to source or God or however you want to look at it, you know. And I had this vision. I saw the soul as like this rainbow bridge, and I was told, you know, more of the spirit, more of our spirit selves want to come through, you know, and manifest on Earth. I don't know if this makes sense, but this is how I see it.
It makes a lot of sense to me, because I compare this with our true self, you know, the true self sort of being that mediator between our soul self, you know, that is, of course, not bound to time and space. It has not even a dimensional restriction, you know, and our very restricted three-dimensional self, right, which is also part of the ego and so forth. So, no, I totally get this. What you're saying, Rebecca, reminds me on, you know, like more or less moving into our purpose, as in trying to move as close as we can to the divine consciousness that can, you know, live within, and how much we can actually retain or hold and manifest in this lifetime has a lot to do with this container that we provide here, this vessel, how well we expand and how well we clear out and work on our own container for love. I call this like a love container, because you can't pour gallons of water into a small cup of water. You have to, if you want to have more love in your life, you have to work on expanding, on increasing that container.
Expanded. That's exactly right. And that's and I love how you talked about the divine, because that's what I say to my clients. We're moving beyond the soulmate, the soul, the karmic type lessons, and we're moving into divine love. That's what Spirit showed me, is where I see the soulmate relationships as the karmic relationships.
Yes, me too.
As the repeating relationships. We want to move into that divine lover, that divine love, where we're really connected with our spirit, and we're on our purpose, and our partners are on purpose, and then our relationships form this unity where we're serving on purpose, and that doesn't have to be in the spiritual industry or the energy.
No, I agree.
As energy workers, it can be in anything, but you're both on your path, and your relationship is this almost like this beacon for others.
It is.
And we have, and in that, one of the cards, I've got some cards, and I pulled a couple of cards out before talking with you this morning, and one of the cards that come out was playfulness. These are Unlucky Love Blocks cards, and it says, life's too short to be too serious. But that's what I can see with couples, to really be in, to take away that seriousness, and when we're stressing about money and things like that, it can be so easy just to go down that hole, and we can drag each other down that hole, and it just takes one person just to be able to just snap out of it and say, you know what, let's just be grateful. Let's just be grateful for what we've got, what's here, what's available to us right now, what's inside of us, what we have inside us, what our potentials are and what we can do, so it's really digging into that gratitude to be able to shift into a bit more playfulness, is really important. Especially that it's actually one of the cards for today.
Yes, and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because the last 3 days, here, at least with those of us who are grinding energies, all right, we're letting this go through us, and we're really working them. We had a lot to do with inner child stuff, and I want to say something about what you just said about the playfulness in relationships. It has a lot to do, like the ability to actually go there has a lot to do with our inner relationship to our inner child. How well we can connect with this. All right. If we are too serious because we are afraid of making mistakes, we're afraid of being judged, which are all things that are bound to inner child aspects, as we call them, or attachments. Then it's very difficult to make that kind of shift in a relationship. It's very, very difficult, and so. It all fits in, and it's really the same message that we are giving over and over again. And this is more or less, you need to take care of your stuff. You can't sweep it under the rug. It's going to come back to you in this next year, just like Rebecca is reflecting, is going to put this right into your face over and over and over again. All right. So, yeah. So
interestingly enough, the parents card come out with the playfulness card, and I feel like that's, I guess this is, a lot of people would have seen their families in the last couple of days, or are with their families right now. That can be really hard for some people being around their in-laws. It can be hard for some people being around their parents, or perhaps what I'm seeing a lot of is that a lot of people have started pulling away from their families, and just as a coping mechanism for now. But even, it's like you can't run and hide from them, though. Like there's, there's going to be our parents' relationship, parent stuff, like there's pressure there on the expectations to be with parents. There's people that, still have some stuff to work out with their relationship with their parents and healing going on there. So there's all these things kind of playing out over Christmas too, with families
and especially,
just pressure.
Especially when it gets a little tricky, and when, like Shoshana taught us this, she's a family counselor, and she helped us to reframe when these pressures, when they bring these things out, that this is actually a good thing, and that we need to see this as an opportunity to grow, and as an opportunity, to really see what's at the core of things. All right. So when, this is kind of like today is the day where all that got grounded. Okay. Because up until now, we try to be nice, right? And just like be all love and all like, giving and all this. And this is running out of steam now. So now is the time where these sort of true feelings come forward again. And if we never work on them, then of course we just really trying to cope with trying to get through from one thing to the next, then we need something else from the outside, something external to make us feel better about ourselves. And that's, I agree, Rebecca, as we both know, this is at the core of many people's relationship issues, in their romantic relationships, but also in their relationships with their families. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, if there was anything I would say to people, at this time, particularly today, if things aren't quite right and you're feeling a little bit frustrated or agitated, that kind of feeling, it's really kind of looking at, what is it that you're thinking? Because I feel like today, especially with this card coming up, there could be some kind of belief patterns that are coming up that are your parents. They're not actually yours, and I think that's where a lot of, pressures come in. There's these feelings of can't be happy or can't be abundant, and that these are coming down from, the previous generations. And, we just need to be aware of them. If we can just really pay attention to what the thought is and what the belief is there, and really asking ourselves, how could this perhaps reflect back to mum and dad? Is this how mum and dad think? Just that awareness. And it'll be everything today, so it could be something just to look at today. It might make it a little easier just to ask that question first up, or how does mum and dad think like this? Or, you know what I mean? Or does mum and dad have these expectations?
I think you can even go a step further. I think you can even go a step further, Rebecca. I think this has something to do with our lineages, with our ancestors. And I'm getting a very, very strong ping here for next year, that we're going to have to deal with, some of the historical stuff, some of the stuff that, like using the analogy of sweeping things under the rug, things that have been swept under the rug long time ago, will come back to us as a society.
Absolutely.
And to us as individuals. And especially here, I don't know if you have this too, but I feel especially the father lineage that needs to be released, that needs to be worked with, where there is a lot of healing that needs to take place.
Absolutely.
Now, Rebecca, before I let you go, okay, can you tell us how people can contact you, where they can expect to see High Vibration City, your dating site, your future dating site for energetically sensitives, awakening people, and empaths? Where can they find it?
Well, everyone can just go to High Vibration City website at the moment. There's the start of it. There's something there.
Yes.
So that would be the best place just to keep an eye on what's coming out. If anybody wants to email me or has a question or anything after today or wants to know more, I'm happy to get emails at Rebecca at High Vibration City. You can contact me there. But yeah, really, just watching out in January, February. We'll be putting stuff on the website, and things will start rocking and rolling in 2018. So thank you.
That's awesome. I'm excited. Not that I'm looking forward, but I'm excited to have a place where I can send people, okay, that do feel that it's difficult and do not want to make too many compromises when, trying to find partners or even just friends, and like-minded. Wonderful.
And that was always my intention. Yeah, absolutely. A place to find friends, a place to find partners. And, it's also going to have, there'll also be lots for couples as well, couples to help move their relationship to the next level. So, yes.
Really cool.
Thank you.
There is one question here before you go, or before we end the webinar, the show today. TADEX is asking, can you please give a little more understanding, relating to the relationship when you have a strong feeling of change in life or business? Do you bring your partner in right at the beginning or after you've achieved it? I think that's an interesting question.
Yeah, it is. And I think that it's important to communicate all the time in relationships. Like, I think sometimes it can feel like you're working out all the time when you're communicating all the time, but I think it's really important to communicate to your partner and let them know what your feelings are, where you feel like you need to shift yourself. And then it may be like, in relationships, it's just a dance, and I feel like we have to constantly use our intuition, and we constantly have to communicate. And it's not so much asking the other person for permission. I don't mean that at all. It's just letting them know that your feelings, like, this is what I really feel I need to do on the inside. I've been doing a lot of connecting with myself. This is where I'm feeling I want to shift my life. You need to know this is really important for me. And, depending on your relationship, I mean, everybody's different. Your partner might be like, oh, whatever, I've heard this before, or whatever.
Right.
Or whatever. So I think that then, there's this piece where you just need to get busy and do the work you need to do. But at the same time, just checking back in and communicating and asking if you need something from your partner, and not expecting them to do the work for you. I think you spoke about that at the beginning, Jona. Sometimes when we're feeling really shitty, we feel like it's easy for us to project it on our partner and say, you need to do this and you need to do that. Well, it's not. You're just taking it out on them. You need to do it for yourself. So just always being aware and being responsible for your own path. But we're in relationships. We have every right to ask each other for what we need when we need it. So just being really aware, being responsible, but at the same time, if there's something that you need, then you need to be able to express that, and just really trusting your intuition it's a dance. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back, but just being true to yourself and we can't control our partners, and how they're going to respond or react and handle when we want to make big shifts in our life. Whenever we want to make big shifts, I mean, people are going to respond to that differently, because as soon as we start making changes, people around us can start getting a little bit antsy because they might be thinking, oh, well, I probably should have done that a long time ago, and I'm not quite ready to do that, and you're starting to do this. Does this mean that I have to start doing this, So
it also helps. It also helps to always express your concerns along with it. You don't have to have all solutions.
Absolutely.
You don't have to have all fixes. If you start something new, especially if it's like completely new to you as well, you don't know how this is going to work out. And you don't know, you can't make any projections or promises. This is not about this. This is about, claiming the space within a relationship to grow, to excel, and preferably, like Rebecca said, to do this together in mutual exchange, to develop, a mutual purpose. Not that both of you have to work the same things. That's not where this goes. It's the purpose behind that. Why am I doing this? Because I'm seeking fulfillment. And if I am fulfilled within myself, then I can be more fulfilled in my relationship with you. So, like pointing out the concerns that you have when you start something new, I think helps to take the pressure away, the performance aspect. A lot of people have performance issues when they try to start a new project, and people are sort of naysayerish, right? And critical. You can just say, it just feels right. And I don't know where this is going to go, and I can't make any promises, and I don't know what the outcome is. I can see, that there may be challenges for us there, but you know what? I trust in our relationship. I commit to our relationship. I'm sure we can work this out.
Absolutely beautiful. That's absolutely wonderful if it can be like that. Yeah.
So, Rebecca, I will definitely keep all transCODES readers and watchers and subscribers up to date about High Vibration City. I am not concerned about the success of this. So, I'm going to put your website and the email address here into the text for the video. And please, everybody, keep posting if you have questions. It's like always, after 45 minutes, we're starting to get warmed up, and then people are starting to come out with the good questions, all right? So just keep posting or email. Rebecca, what's your email, please?
It's Rebecca@highvibrationcity.com.
Okay, so if you have questions in regards to the things that Rebecca mentioned here, as well as her Unlock Your Love blogs, courses, and so forth, please contact Rebecca. If you have general questions about karmic relationships and so forth, you can text, you can put them here in the chat, or check in the YouTube channel. There's 2 webinars in eliminating karmic relationships, all right, and the dynamics there. So there's a lot of educational material here as well. And as far as tomorrow is concerned, day 7, Rebecca, you and I did not communicate this, but we're going to have Ryan McCormick here tomorrow, a radio show host with energy work background, who is going to bring in humor, who is going to show us how to lighten up some of that seriousness that we talked about, and maybe a little goofy at that, helping us to overcome that, being stuck in that sort of heavy place that some of us may end up in. So Ryan is also the owner of OuterLimitsRadio.com, and he is our host for the Heart Warriors Radio. So tomorrow we're also going to be talking about the Heart Warriors Radio. But Rebecca, thank you so much for coming. Okay. Thank you for being so spontaneous and flexible. It was awesome. And I wish you lots of success and luck with this beautiful project. And thank you, everybody here, for coming today and watching us on day 6 of getting through the holidays. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful night, morning, day, whatever whatever the day of the time is for you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.